You didn't say how I had to write it. Long ago, way back in the Dark Ages known as the 20th century, there was a favored form of punishment handed out to innocent students. It was the dreaded writing lines. The vice principal at our high school loved to give out demerits. Late to school. A demerit. Talk too loud in the CAF. Demerit. Run in the hallway. Etc. 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 The way the demerit system in the school worked was like this. 3 demerits and you had to write 500 lines. Get another demerit, and it went up to 1,000 lines. Going up exponentially. I can't remember what the line was that we had to write. Probably something along the lines of, I will not be late to school, or, I will not talk in class. Or some other nonsense. This was in the early 80s and my family had gotten our first computer. Now, it wasn't a computer like we have today. There was no hard drive and you had to put in a floppy disk to run the system. We had only had the computer for a short period of time and had just gotten a printer when I ran afoul of the vice principal. It was a dot matrix printer that you had to pull the sides off of it. But it was still cool. Because nobody else I knew had a computer and printer set up. I had been assigned 500 lines and I didn't want to write them. Nobody wants to write 500 lines. It's annoying. It's a waste of time. And did I mention it's annoying? So I decided I was going to do my lines on the computer. It was still annoying. I had to copy each sentence and then paste it over and over and over again until I made sure I had 500 lines exactly. But it was faster. And the vice principal had never said how I had to write the lines. The next morning, I went to the vice principal's office to deliver my lines. I was nice and put them in a little folder so that they would all stay together. He took one look at my lines and told me that was not what he meant when he said I had to write 500 lines. I chose to play dumb and asked how I had done it wrong. I had written the line 500 times and he had not specified how I had to write the line. He hung my lines on his wall with a sign that said that all lines must be handwritten and used them as example of how you could not do your lines. But he couldn't make me rewrite those lines. A few years later, my sister decided she couldn't be outdone by my malicious compliance. So, when she had to write her lines, she delivered them in a beautifully decorated folder and used calligraphy to write her lines. I'm pretty sure that vice principal didn't love seeing either of us coming. Very nice. I used to have a monstrosity that allowed me to write something like 7 or 9 lines at once. It was basically pencils spaced out and taped together. What would the consequences have been for not doing it at all? To be honest, your sister's task probably took a lot longer. But the malicious compliance was just as beautiful, pun intended, as yours. I used to tape 3 pencils together in a line and write my sentences 3 lines at a time. The nuns never figured it out. I got nailed with that punishment when I was in middle school. A friend of mine and I were walking into the cafeteria, and my friend told me he hoped I messed up my speech in one of my classes. And I jokingly replied with a, "Fuck you." We had this mean, scary-looking security guard. This was back before they had police officers at every school. And he overheard me and told me to write what I said 50 times. No, I will not say, or anything else like that. I started to clarify, but he would have none of it and told me to do exactly what he said. So I wrote, "Fuck you," 50 times and handed it to him at the end of lunch. Naturally, he got mad at me again. But thankfully there was another adult present who had witnessed our interaction. And after I explained that I just did what he told me to do, they stepped in and told me to go, all while failing the fight to keep their smile from their face. Don't we now have fonts that do handwriting? In high school shop class 1 had to write, I will observe the polarity of electrolytic capacitors 2,000 times. I haven't blown up an electrolytic capacitor since. 10 principal dollar equals, I will not be late to school, 20 open, LPT1, for output as number 130 for I equals 1 TO. 50,040 print number 1. Principal dollar. 50 next I60 close number 170 end . I still remember 5th grade. Circa 1978 when I had to write sentences. We were doing a dental routine at school and had to brush our teeth each day after lunch and then had a fluoride treatment after a few weeks. After brushing our teeth one day I walked out of the bathroom and ran my thumb across the bristles of my brush, spraying Carrie with a small amount of water. This resulted in a few hundred lines of toothbrushes or for brushing teeth not for giving showers. I had an algebra teacher do this to me, i.e. write lines for minor infractions. He didn't know that I had a junior microscope at the house to assist in my science fair project. So yes, I did write it 500 times and even brought the microscope to him so he could see it and verify each and every line. My teachers would have been very pleased with my sister. She's much politer and a way better student than I ever was. I was too busy being gay. You reminded me of my old maths teacher, Mr. Spratt. When he gave us lines, he didn't give us easy ones like, I must pay attention in class, which fits easily on a single line. Not for Mr. Spratt. Oh no. He'd make us write out, I must endeavor to hang on every pearly word of wisdom from a teacher. Because they know better than me, and we had to fit it all on one line. Loved ol' Spratt. When I had to write lines it wasn't, I will not be late, it was, The Raven, by Edgar Allan Poe. I still have the opening stanza memorized. I think it was pretty cool of that teacher to punish us with something interesting. Carbon paper is your friend in these situations. Yummy face. I will not forget vitally important impedimenta. Sorry, Mr. Vaughn. I can remember the lines 40 years on. But I still lose my pens and pencils. I did this. My dad helped me. We used WordPerfect. I think it was called. What a memory you've unlocked. Lol. I want to see a kid write lines in binary and hand in like 1,000 pages tears of joy. Amazing. You leveraged technology perfectly. R. Malicious compliance. 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 To be fair, you were supposed to write your lines, not type and copy, paste them. The calligraphy was a great MC, though. When I wake up, well, I know I'm gonna be the man who wakes up next to you. When I go out, yeah, I know I'm gonna be the man who goes along with you. If I get drunk, well, I know I'm gonna be the man who gets drunk next to you. And if I haver, hey, I know I'm gonna be the man who's havering to you. But I would write 500 lines and I would rile 500 more just to be the man who wrote 1,000 lines to fall down at your door. When I'm working, yes, I know I'm gonna be the man who's working hard for you. And when the money comes in for the work I do, you are pass almost every penny on to you. When I come home, oh, I know I'm gonna be the man who comes back home to you. And if I grow old, well, I know I'm gonna be the man who's growing old with you. But I would write 500 lines and I would write 500 more just to be the man who wrote 1,000 miles to fall down at your door. When I'm lonely, well, I know I'm gonna be the man who's lonely without you. And when I'm dreaming, well, I know I'm gonna dream about the time when I'm with you. When I go out, well, I know I'm gonna be the man who goes along with you. And when I come home, yes, I know I'm gonna be the man who comes back home with you. I'm gonna be the man who's coming home with you. But I would write 500 lines and I would write 500 more just to be the man who wrote 1,000 lines to fall down at your door. And I would write 500 lines and I would write 500 more just to be the man who wrote 1,000 lines and fall down at your door. My mom was a programmer at Data General in the 70s. Way before the typical person would have had a home computer. But I spent a lot of weekends playing in the DG mainframe rooms as a child. I completely respect your malicious compliance. Would have done the same in those circumstances myself.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Eracast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.